My name is Kelly Finnegan. I worked at Catholic Charities Community Services for many years and came to work at the House of Mercy about 6 months ago as the director of Sanctuary Village, our temporary homeless shelter over the winter. That was in a loading dock donated by Buckingham Properties. And now I'm a social worker at the House of Mercy, doing a variety of different tasks. One of our philosophies and goals is to create a housing first program, which is based on this idea of harm reduction. The idea being that the best way to support people and to put them into permanent housing is to give them housing immediately, to give them housing first, thus the name. It's a concept that was started in New York City about over 20 years ago, and now it's being done throughout the country. It's being done in Seattle, in Denver, Boston, in many other cities. There's a little bit of housing first that's done in Rochester, but none of them do it exactly how it's supposed to be done. The idea is that people are moved into apartments, basically given keys to their own apartment, and they may have a serious drug and alcohol abuse. They may have severe mental illness. And so rather than the traditional model, or as it's known, the continuum of care, is this idea that you put someone into treatment or into detox, so they're clean and sober for 3 or 6 or 9 months, or you start them on psychiatric medications, so they're able to control their schizophrenia before they moved into an apartment. And that was kind of the traditional continuum of care model. So housing first is the opposite. You give them the apartment and then you start dealing with those things, helping them go to doctor's appointments, helping them get food, helping them teaching them life skills, those kind of things. I think in one way that we're not doing housing first in Rochester is that there are some programs that do put people immediately into apartments, and actually House of Mercy is one of those. But we don't provide the comprehensive support services that are needed in the housing first model, which is probably is more important than actually giving someone the apartment. You can give someone an apartment, but without the support services in place, it's likely that they're going to lose their apartment, they're going to be evicted, those kind of things. So having those support services is really important. So we're working on developing a housing first model, hopefully to have it up and running, in the next 2 or 3 years. Possibly a comprehensive system where there would be a large building with a shelter or an intake on the ground floor, and then there would be apartments in the building where people could move directly from the shelter into the apartments. One of the cool features of that, and we saw this at Sanctuary Village, and we see it here at the House of Mercy, and is the importance of the community that people have. And the shelters actually, if you run them well and if you provide compassion and support and make them warm, inviting places, they really become a community within themselves. People take care of each other, and people take care of the shelter where they live. So when you move someone, and a lot of people get used to that. A lot of people get used to living in the shelter environment, or they're used to living in like an institutional environment, hospital, or they're living out on the street, where they have to rely on each other in order to survive. So when you take someone who's been living on the street for 10, 15, 20 years, and you say, okay, we give you an apartment, go sit in this apartment, they oftentimes don't know what to do with themselves because they're by themselves, they've had to rely on other people, and they have that kind of constant interaction with people. So if you have this one standalone program with a shelter and with apartments, people could move into an apartment, but they'd always have the shelter to go to during the day. They could spend the entire day in the shelter, and then at night they'd go to their apartment. Or if it became too much for them, the isolation, the loneliness that they might experience in an apartment, they may actually move back to the shelter, and they could live in the shelter for a few more months until they get maybe acclimated.